If you're part of a culture that celebrates Easter, this episode may be for you. And do you remember last week when we talked about boundaries? Okay, so you need to tune in because in this episode we are going to talk about boundaries and going on holidays when we live abroad. So stay tuned. In reality, there is no one single answer to the problem of where I'm going to spend holidays abroad. It's true that over almost 2 decades of living abroad, there are a few things that I noticed that helped me or hinder me when I had to come to the decision of where I wanted to spend my holidays. And for sure, things change as well for my friends and family back in my home country in understanding my thought process. Sometimes it's difficult. There is still the big question around what are you going to do for Christmas? And for many years, I had to say, I'm sorry, I need to work, which was incredibly true and incredibly painful at times. And now I'm just oh no, I don't have to work anymore on Christmas. So I'm coming over. But there are other times that actually I don't have to go home. I don't have to go elsewhere. Sometimes I just want to stay in the country where I'm in and just enjoy it. A common thread that I noticed is that every time that holidays were coming up, I had this strong need for connection. And at times that meant, oh, you know what, I'm enjoying my time in my host country. I have a group of friends who's staying here and we have plans. We have things that we want to do together. I'm craving that. I want that. And there are other times when I'm I actually want to spend time with my sisters, with my parents. I want to be surrounded by things that are very familiar to me. I just want to be part of those traditions. I really miss my mom's cooking. There was so much that I wanted back then. And maybe those were the things that I actually needed at the time. I needed a sense of familiarity and security that for me was coming from remembering my culture and staying close to people who've known me for a very long time. What I realized was the importance of tuning in to what my needs were. At times that meant I needed to have a hard look at what was happening and all the pulls and pushes from people in my life who were really pressuring me to make a decision. At times it was incredibly difficult. I couldn't prioritize what was needed. I couldn't really have a look into what it is that I really wanted and how I could achieve it. Other times I simply didn't have the headspace to think that through or the capacity in terms of financial capacity, time capacity, the physical ability to actually move around. And I'm also referring to COVID. I think that really made it incredibly difficult. And nowadays, tickets are not that cheap anymore to actually travel around. So some decisions were made for me and they carried a lot of resentment and guilt. I think that's also one of the reasons why, I decided to start the podcast. It's about hey, we carry a lot of guilt when we are, someone who moved abroad for a living, especially around this time, around festivities and anniversaries but also we are people who are trying to create boundaries for ourselves. So actually we can feel better. We need to create boundaries with the new country. We need to create boundaries with the people back home. And we're kind of crushed in the middle. And when holidays happen, it's just okay, now you have to put into practice everything that you learned about boundaries, everything that you learned about how to cope with guilt, and good luck, right? And it's so incredibly difficult. After almost 2 decades of living abroad, and although there are things, as I said before, there is a better understanding about where I'm at, there is a better understanding of my lifestyle and the fact that I am in Scotland to stay, or better, I'm living abroad to stay abroad. And my family understand that there may be things happening as well in between that are not allowing me to go home. Regardless all of this, there are times where I'm just oh, I wish I was elsewhere. And elsewhere could be like when I'm in Scotland, I want to be back to Italy. When I'm in Italy, I want to be in Scotland. Or when I'm in both countries, I'm just like, I wish I spent time elsewhere, in another country, in another city, with other people. It happens, it's part of life. But the level of stress that comes with it to organize it all and make sure that everything is fine, it's so incredibly exhausting. Even like the idea of going home, and I'm pretty sure that all of you know about this experience. It's about like, okay, I'm going home and everything is already planned for you. Or you're trying as well to plan to do as much as possible because your time there is very limited. Most likely you live on the other side of the world in relation to your home country and your dear ones. And you're just like, okay, I have like 1 week, 2 weeks, a year. I want to maximize my time here, and that's not always possible, and that doesn't turn to be a holiday. I bet that's not a holiday for you. It's never been for me. I've always struggled with the idea of like cramming everything in, and like there are stories of, oh, how long is Francesca staying? Or like, and sometimes it was like, oh, sorry, 40 hours. But in those 40 hours, I did loads of stuff. I surely did more than what I did this past Christmas when I spent a couple of weeks there, right? Like, but the reality is we want to maximize the time there, and it's stressful, and we try to prioritize activities and people and try to fit everything in, and it's not always smooth, and it can create a lot of like resentment and exhaustion and guilt again. Friends like, oh yeah, like I'm coming over, and I let them know literally like a day before going, and that was simply because I didn't have time before. And that was extremely difficult. The times that actually worked the best was like, hey, I'm around this time, I'm doing the thing, would you like doing it with me? Last but not least, I will say the one thing that I noticed that actually helped me to deal with holidays much better since I lived abroad is to make sure that actually my self-care is top notch. I try to do that anyway every day, sometimes more successfully than others. But for sure, the sense of like, okay, what is it that I need from these holidays? And if the need for that holidays is like meeting people and doing stuff and maximize my time wherever I want to be, then it's also a matter of thinking about like, okay, like what is my capacity and how can I look after myself so then I can enjoy my time when I'm off. And sometimes it comes very easily, and it's very straightforward, and you don't even have to think about it, and it just happens to be that way. Some other times we need to put efforts in, and no matter what we decide to do, I think the most important thing is like we do matter too. And this is so important to remember. There are so many times that it almost look like all the other people matters more before us, and that's not necessarily true. We matter for ourselves, and this is the message that I hope I can communicate. If we are organizing things and we have to feel guilty and resentful and stressed, and we are not resting, we are not enjoying our time there necessarily, we are finding ourselves with more stuff to do just because we try to prioritize other. Whatever you decide to do during your holidays is not going to be okay, because you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be okay about it. So remember, for as long as you prioritize you, and for as long as you feel like, okay, this is manageable, that's okay. That's the type of holidays that you want. And yes, there are other people involved. Yes, we're not living in isolation. But for as long as it's clear to you what your needs are and expectations are managed, yes, it's not always going to be possible to have like the smoothest and best holiday ever. But for as long as those things are there, then it's, it's a starting point. It's about saying like, hey, okay, to yourself, it's fine to, I'm noticing this. I took this into consideration. Maybe next time I will pay attention to it more. and that's okay. So this is the end of our episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please share it with your ones and leave a review because that's so important and it matters to me. Until next time, bye.